it is July 29th, and we will dive right into a little bit off schedule, but we will get right into stand-up leadership. If it's the first time here, congratulations, you found something new. And you know, something new sometimes can be something different, something you can be looking for. And I don't believe in coincidences. So if you're here, say thank you in the comments, say hi, and let me know where you're tuning in from. But you know, today we will talk about different leadership qualities, and we will talk about how they help you stand out as a leader. Because as a leader, you need to be standing out in order for others wanting for you to follow. You know, Larry Wilson said that a leader is a person who has people following them because they want to. And I really like this because it's really hard to lead, and there's a lot of resistance when it is done against someone's will, or that goes against what they actually want. And so one of the biggest secrets, you might say, is in leadership, is this idea that you have to create an environment where others feel at ease and appreciated. That's in essence what every human being, every person in any organization wants to have. They want to feel at ease and they want to feel appreciated. When you have that, it's so much easier. This is the foundation, right? This is the foundation that helps you build a house. The house is the organization. And the organization is not the building where you go to. The organization is the people, right? There's no organization without the people. Some people might kind of conflict with that considering AI, but in essence, even AI was built by people. So we need people more than ever before. An effective leader, if you look at it, they are always a strong originator. They originate new and constructive ideas that essentially move them forward towards the goal that the organization is working towards. And they reject any idea that is not aligned with the goal that they're working on. They're not aligned because I think it's a great example. When a ship is sinking, the captain needs to get rid of anything that is not essential to surviving the members of the crew and the passengers. Everything that is not essential to the life of everyone on board has to go overboard. And so as a leader, you have to have that capacity to not always necessarily to that extreme, but you have to have the capacity to filter out what is not serving the goal. Because you see, the distance between where you are, where you want to go as a leader and as a team, is really removing everything that does not take you to the goal. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so an effective leader really also has to be subjective. They have to be not only originator, they have to be also objective to other people's ideas. And within the field of that goal, within the field of their own idea. So if they're working on, for example, climbing an Everest, like really simple, it's not maybe relevant for everyone, but climbing a mountain. And if someone brings an idea that we should walk into the valley instead, that's obviously not aligned with the goal. And this is not the idea that we will pursue, even though it can be exciting. We could see a lot of great things there, but it's not aligned with where we're going. That's not what we want. and it will not take us to where we want to go. And an effective leader has a ability to reject ideas that are not worthy, that are not really worthy of the goal. Grab your favorite drink, because we're going to dive deeper. But a leader really knows when to be which, when to be the originator and when to be subjective to the execution, right? So originator versus execution, because you have to know when to be which. And it's really common for when we talk about an effective leader that they have a lot of resistance, right? They have a lot of resistance, even from the most loyal followers, because an effective leader has a vision to know where they're going. And they have to be led from within, because Wallace D. Wallace said, calmness of mind is one of the most beautiful jewels of wisdoms. And so they know where they are going, and they know they are going in the right direction. They have a vision, right? And they have a vision, and they know they will get there. And they know they will get their followers to buy into the vision eventually. That's why there's sometimes resistance, because not everyone sees the leader's vision immediately. So a leader has to be led from within, And eventually the evidence that everyone is looking for, because we are trained to live from the outside in, not from the inside out. And the more you educate your followers too, the more they will see that we're not just working on the outside, we're working inside too, right? And the sooner you help them understand that, the faster they can buy into your idea. And so what's next? Because eventually, like I said, the evidence, the physical evidence starts to appear. And the vision that the leader had appears for the rest of the world, that he or she had in their mind. In their mind. Nowhere else. It was always in their mind. Right? But then it starts to manifest in the outside world. And an effective leader doesn't compete, besides themselves, with the version they were yesterday. And they create. And law of compensation clearly states that the amount of money, or you could say compensation, is in direct ratio to three things: to the demand for what you do, your ability to do it, and the difficulty there is in replacing you. Now, there's a big demand for what you do as a leader. Now, the second is your ability to do it, and the third is the difficulty in replacing you. You see, if you focus on the second one, then you will remove the difficulty that is in replacing you. Because if you get really good at what you're doing as a leader in your specific field, you're going to be very difficulty to replace. That doesn't mean that you are irreplaceable. Nobody is. But you will be very, very hard to replace because you're very valuable. Right? And an effective leader is like I said, a creative visionary. Some people think we only have the creative departments, but the creative departments are not the only ones who are creative. Any single person is creative. Everyone has creativity in them. Everyone can use their imagination and really starting thinking and expanding on how can we do better at what we're doing right now. And really imagining, because imagination is one of the most powerful tools we have. It's one of our highest faculties, and it's how everything man-made has been created. It was first imaged in someone's mind. Coca-Cola, the phone, the computer, the screen, the window, whatever you look at was created in someone's imagination. Even the chair, someone once thought would be nice to sit on a nice chair, right? First it was probably a wooden one, maybe even a stone one, but eventually someone brought it from his mind or her mind into that physical object chair, and now we have really nice chairs to sit on. I really enjoy my chair. And so you bring it out by first having a picture, and we think in pictures. We always think in pictures. We had another session a bit while ago where we talked about the picture of the mind. And most people are not aware of what that picture looks like. So there's nothing but confusion. There's nothing but confusion. So you have to have an image in your mind on what it looks like, what your mind looks like. Because if you think of the mind, there's nothing but confusion. It's either blank or you're thinking of the brain. And your brain is not the mind. Mind is in every single cell of your body. And it's vibrant. But so if you talk about the effective leaders, and I gotta tell you, this is not based on something I just read today on a book. This is based, first of all, on my past 15 years of experience in learning, in teaching, and then really studying in depth into what is leadership, how do people operate, and why do people do the things they do? Why do some people operate at the highest level than the others? Why are some people who have the same background, same knowledge, operate better and more effectively than the other one? Why is there such a difference? And I went into deep research into different things like leadership, into human potential, into the workings of the mind. And I found different research from especially from Bob Proctor. And Bob Proctor spent 60 years in researching, studying, and teaching this information. And before that, Napoleon Hill spent over half of his life also collecting, organizing, and systemizing information on these success principles from Think and Grow Rich that Bob Proctor studied as well. So this is really based on decades, I would say almost a century of research that has been proven all the time. And so let's go deeper, because effective leader has a vision. They know where they are going. They have a clear picture. We said we think in pictures, right? And so they're extremely observant. Besides the picture, they have the long range view, but they are very present, and they see what is happening around them. They're very observant, even if it's not very obvious and it seems like they're not listening. Yes, effective leader, not just every leader, but an effective leader is very observant. I like Gary Vaynerchuk, who built one of the biggest media companies in the world. And he has just immense capacity to have a very detailed overview of different parts of the business, even the parts that he's not directly responsible for anymore, because he has very responsible and competent leaders there in place. But when he goes into a meeting, people were very shocked at the level of understanding and detail he is able to have from very specific areas in his company. And that's because he's very observant in the way he's operating. He's observing a lot, he's paying attention, and most important, he's focused. And so leaders are active listeners. Active listeners. They are actively listening, and when a leader, they receive ideas all the time. An effective leader receives tons of ideas all the time. And when they receive a suggestion that is superior to their own regarding moving towards the goal, then what they do is they actually drop their own idea, because they're humble and they know that they're not the smartest person in the room. If they are, they also know that they're not in the right room anymore. but they drop their own idea if the new idea is superior to their own. And they accept the new idea as their own. And they work with it as if it's their own idea. And most important part, they give full credit to the originator of the idea. Whoever originated the idea gets full credit, but they use it as their own. And so they use it as that because they know other people can help them get to where they want to go. An effective leader, like we said, they have a vision. They know where they are going, and they know they will get their people to buy into that vision. I think it's always a good example to when you are using Google Maps or just Apple apps or whatever navigation you're using. In order for you to use the navigation device, you need to put in the destination. First off, it needs to have your location in order to calculate the route to the destination. So it needs to know where you're going, where you are, number one. So and second, where you're going. And as a leader, it's pretty hard to get to your destination if you don't know where you're going. And furthermore, when you don't know where you are, because any change individually or collectively in an organization or a team starts with clarity. It starts with clarity because if we don't know where we are, it's pretty hard to change anything. If we are not aware of the problem, where we are, it's pretty hard to change anything. So the first key level is really awareness. We need to become problem aware. Most people are, most organizations are, but some are not. And so we need to become aware of where we are. And so once we are aware of where we are, we can set in a destination. And once we have the destination, we can push start, right, on the Google Maps. And then you start receiving the instructions. You start receiving coordinates, the instructions, or turn left, turn right. And that is how your mind operates, because if you are not decisive on the destination and you're going back and forth between a goal, you can't receive ideas, creative ideas on how to move forward. So effective leader knows where they're going. They're very clear on it. But they also have a great attitude. Like if you study any great leader that you look up to as a great aspiration, they have a great attitude. And what I mean by that is they automatically look for and they find good and the best in other people. And they highlight the good and the best in others. Always. They don't focus on the negativity. In fact, very rarely they allow negativity, because negativity is like cancer. It spreads very fast. It spreads very fast. And so effective leader creates environments that bring out the good and the best in others. They not only look for it, they not only find it themselves, they not only highlight it themselves, but they create an environment, a ecosystem, you might say, or a foundation, an environment, right? And that's why others want to follow them, because they feel good. Like I said, they feel at ease and appreciated in that environment, right? An effective leader understands who they are personally, not what the name is. My name is Denise, but that is not who I am. That is simply a name that was given to me at birth, but I did not decide that. I decide who I am. So an effective leader really knows who they are, what they're capable of actually doing, and they really take full control over their own life, not just professionally, but personally, spiritually, physically. And they lead themselves first towards their goals, their own goals. And they know that they need to have a discipline. Whatever they're doing, they need to be disciplined towards moving towards their objective. And discipline is nothing more than giving yourself a command and then following it. Because if you give yourself a command and you don't follow it, that is destructive internally. Internally, that's destructive. And it kills any sense of confidence in you. If you give yourself continually commands and you don't follow it, that's procrastination, and it just kills confidence. And now they have really understanding of the creative ability. We talked about creativity. Creativity, one of the biggest forces, imagination. They use it continuously and effective. In athletics, they use creativity. Basketball players, football players, hockey players, the teams are always visualizing. I mean, the top teams. They are visualizing their success. They're visualizing hitting the goals, hitting the hoops, whatever it is. They're visualizing as a team and individually on their best performance. So why don't we do it as a leader if it works in other areas of our life? Start using creative imagination to see how you want to operate, how you want to operate as a leader. And so they know they have the capacity to create anything they want. And effective leaders always, like I said, maintain a good attitude, regardless of what's happening outside. Because what's happening outside has nothing to do with what's supposed to go inside. And they know where they're going. They have plans. While the plans may not be perfect, they don't know how they're going to get there, because the goal is big, it's something they've never done before, but they know they will get there because they have the belief of a leader and they have a vision and they're locked in. And so the effective leader really understands that if a person is not prepared to do more than they're being paid for, they'll never be paid for more than what they're doing. It's the law of compensation. You're compensated according to what you put out, not what you expect. And so I want to dive into something that came from an article called The Common Denominator of Success. And that is actually based on Ian Gray's famous speech called The Common Denominator of Success. And in that article, he mentioned that we don't like to talk to people about something they don't want to talk about. So we have this innate kind of fear, average human at least has, that we're highly resistant to change individually, even if it's for our own benefit. And so as leaders, a lot of times we don't like to talk to people about what they don't like to talk about. So if we know, either it's in sales, although I believe everyone is in sales, but it's sometimes challenging for people to talk about things that people don't necessarily want to talk about. And so they're prone to escape efforts to persuade others because of the fear of criticism, fear of resistance. But effective leaders know that by doing the things that they don't like to do but are necessary, they can accomplish what they want to accomplish. And so successful leaders are not influenced by the desire for pleasing methods. They're influenced by the desire for pleasing results. But while the failing leaders are influenced by the desire for pleasing methods. Think about it. They're influenced by the desire for pleasing results, not methods. And successful people have a purpose. They know where they're going, and they know why they're going there. Do you know why you're doing what you're doing? And the purpose is strong enough to make them do the things they don't like doing. And in order for them to accomplish their purpose, they're going to do the things they don't want to do, that are needing to be done. And you know what? The more you do the things that you don't like to do, the more easier it gets. And eventually you don't even you even get to a place where you maybe even start liking some of the things you didn't like before, because you gain the full confidence of doing that. And a lot of times I meet leaders who are in a slump, they're in a hole, in a mental hole, they're stuck, they're lost. And that simply means that they've reached a point, for now anyway, that the things that they don't like doing have become more important than the reason or the purpose for doing them. So the purpose has been kind of put out off the side, and they're more focused on the things they don't like doing. Or a lot of times also they lost the sense of their goal. They don't know where they're going. They're confused, they're lost because they don't have direction. And every qualification for success, of success, is always acquired through habit. This is the last thing, then we'll wrap it up. And people form habits, and habits form futures. And so here's the interesting part of it, is that if you don't deliberately create good habits, form good habits, unconsciously you will form bad ones, negative ones, unproductive ones. And you're the kind of person you are because you have formed a habit of being that kind of person. So ask yourself today what kind of person you are. And is that person who you want to be as a leader? If not, you can change it. And we go deep into 7 characteristics of a leader, and what does it take to really be an effective leader in our Eagle Mind session for really visionary leaders who are ready to step into full clarity, full purpose, and who really want to bring out the true potential in them. It's happening August 14 to 16, so you have plenty of time to schedule it in for you. Check the link in the bio or in my page, you will find it. If not, feel free to message me or comment here below. But thank you for joining in today. This was July 29th, 2026. Stand Up Leadership. We'll see you next week. Take care.